This episode brought to you by BRE Promotions. Whether you're just starting out or evolving your brand, BRE Promotions offers you expertly crafted disruptions that'll take you to the next level. BRE Promotions. We make your business shine. Visit us at brepromotions.com to schedule your free consultation.
Hi, I'm Andy McGrath, author of Beasts of Britain. I'm a speaker and field investigator. I'm also currently working on a TV series under the same name, Beasts of Britain, and a new podcast, Beastly Theories, featuring low-key interviews with researchers around the world. I'm also continuing my passion for writing about cryptids and how to place animals in other parts of the world. My new Beasts of Britain map is currently out, and I'm also working on my next book, Beasts of North America, and Welcome to the Goblin universe.
Hi, everybody. I don't know. We're supposed to start this new broadcast, this new program, but I don't know. Maybe you should start it. You know what? Here, you start it.
We're back, baby! My paranormal brother, Mr. Brian Bowden, and Ron Murphy, gathered together inside the Goblin universe the way it has been always designed to be, my friend.
That's correct. We got a great show.
We have a fantastic show. Actually, stepping back inside this rabbit hole, I would rather be on here with no other person than our next guest. If he was not into cryptozoology, he would still be one of my favorite people on this planet.
100%.
Yep. Just
great people.
A true, genuine human being. I got a chance to meet him at CryptidCon down in Kentucky last year. We had breakfast together, which was awesome. There's no story behind that. We just had breakfast together, and then we did a great after party, so I got to hang out with him for a while. And I've been looking forward to having him on our program. I'm sure that you have too, Brian.
100%.
So without further ado, let's bring in Mr. Andy McGrath.
Andy, welcome.
Hello. Hello, fellas. How are you doing?
I'm excellent, my friend. How are you?
I'm very good. I've got a little bit of man flu going on, so I could die, obviously. But if it's officially man flu, I could go. So, yeah, a little bit bunged up today, but I will try to make it as clear as possible in my most dulcet and monotonous English tones.
Well,
yes.
I think it's an absolute honor to have you on. This is the first time we've actually spoken, and I definitely look forward to eventually, hopefully, meeting up with you and some of the other crew over there in the UK, where I actually put you in the class of the League of Extraordinary UK Men and Women, Gentlemen and Ladies in the Paranormal. I mean, you're one of the top, in my opinion. You do a great job with what you do, and I couldn't thank you more. I mean, just Beast of Britain alone is a fantastic resource for everybody.
It's actually it's a must on anybody's desk. If you are into the paranormal, into the cryptozoological, the unexplained, this is a must-have book, folks. And the other thing about Andy as well, that he just does not limit himself to the beasties of Great Britain. You've also done a lot of research in the United States, haven't you, my friend?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I'm actually currently writing Beasts of North America. That's the second book in the series, and initially when I wrote them, it was supposed to be Beasts of Britain followed by a TV series, and then Beasts of North America, and then so on and so forth around the world. But I'm still pitching the TV series, so any production people out there, you get in touch. I'm waiting for somebody to say yes. We will risk the reputation of our network on this venture.
You know Chris Turner, so do it like 2 or 3 episodes with Chris, and then sell it that way.
It's a possibility, but I really feel that it needs a big treatment. I think and Chris is amazing. I mean, he actually did my teaser trailer for Beasts of Britain, and he knocked that together in 2 days. We used a few bits of stock footage and other things to sort of convey the point up there at Lake Windermere, looking for the Bonessi, the lake monster of that particular Cumbrian lake. And 2 days he put it together. I was inexperienced in front of the camera, average of 10 takes on every single shot, 2 or 3 lines, and he was just patient. He said, "Okay, Andy, you know what, you need to be louder." And I said, but I am being loud. He said, no, you have a very quiet voice. I need you to shout. And I shouted. He said, still quiet. I said, but I'm shouting. He said, no, you're not. You need to shout in your normal voice for it to be a normal person's voice at that level. And it's strange because I've been a singer for 30 years. I can really sing very, very loud, huge projection. When it comes to talking, I can barely open my mouth to get the words out. It's a strange thing.
I've actually was a witness to Andy singing Radiohead's "Creep," and he did a fantastic version, actually better than the album version, in my opinion.
Oh, Ron.
I'm completely honest.
It's
but
very.
I totally ducked out at the end bit, the high bit at the end. I felt coming. Suddenly, I'd never sung that song before. I realized, he gets really high in falsetto at the end here. I'm going to have to duck out. What am I doing? I just kind of sent it in a different direction, like I was ad-libbing, but it was a cop-out, a complete cop-out.
Well, you just point the mic at the audience and have them sing it.
Yeah.
That's the old standby. Whenever I was on stage and I knew these high pitches were coming, I'm like, I just point to the mic to someone else and like, you guys sing it now, because I'm not reaching that tone. I haven't reached those tones in ages. So when I hear Beasts of Britain, I think of the Clash's Guns of Brixton. So I mean, I always have thought of it that way. And you're a musician.
Well, no, I know that song. I love it too. Strangely, when I'm out there, especially if I'm on the water, I was at Loch Ness very recently, and a teaser trailer I did with Christian at Lake Windermere. When I'm out there on the boat on the water, the tune that comes into my head, it's on my Amazon playlist too, is John Williams' "Out to Sea" from the first Jaws movie.
Right.
Time.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like great. I'm like, yeah. Here we go. And it's kind of a bit sort of moody, and it's weird that movie had such a strong effect on me. I was talking to Scott Modest the other day because I've been interviewing a bunch of people for my podcast. Well, it's more of like a crypto chat with friends. It's complete and total nepotism. It's just people I like who are big in the industry and whose brains I actually want to pick to find out what they know.
Right.
It's a real cheeky endeavor. And it's just, on YouTube, it'll be on YouTube probably, and it's nothing special other than it's just me and somebody else just chatting. And it takes place we have a tiny London house. And, more expensive than most of the houses you get in the US that are huge, like acres of land, but it's like a 2-bedroom tiny house with a little white picket fence garden, that's it, and a yard at the back. Anyway, because of this tiny house, my children, they love animal figurines. And they've got hundreds of different animal figurines, from Bigfoot to Nessie to like baby lambs and pachyderms and pangolins and all these different things. So I'm in the playpen with the animals behind me, and what people can't see when I'm interviewing is there's all these teddies around me enjoying. And the people have asked, you've got a lot of figurines, got a lot of animals. I said, not mine, they're my daughters. She's 5 years old. You can name every single one of them with its scientific name. She knows it.
Wow.
Every single one, and she has chosen every single animal. Apart from one or two, I got Terence Muncie gifted me the Bigfoot from Jean's cryptid creature replica, and the coelacanth I got from the International Cryptozoology Museum last year.
I know that.
Everything else she's chosen.
That's Portland, Maine, right?
And it was great. It was really nice. Maine as well. Very, very nice state.
Tons of cryptozoology type of creatures in there, from Dark, the black dogs, to definitely Bigfoot, Sasquatch, giants.
Yeah, sea serpents and things.
Yeah.
The thing about Maine, about the urban sprawl of the British Isles, Maine is the least populated state east of the Mississippi River. So we're talking about a lot of desolate areas in Maine.
Well, I mean, yeah, we at least populated. We drove through it as well. I drove through it on the way to Vermont. I spent 5 days at Lake Champlain, and also met a guy. What was his name? Jim, or I wish I could remember. He was the head of the American Fortune Society at one point. Jim Harrell's a talk show host. I'll find his name for you anyway. Anyway, he had seen a tatzelworm in New Hampshire. when he was 15, 16 years old, described a big, long black creature about 2 meters long with really deep yellow stripes running along it. Couldn't see the legs, but like zipped past him into a railway embankment and started digging away to get in. Like, all of this stuff coming out. He invited us to his house. And it was almost like the International Cryptozoology Museum for Fortean research. His house was full of all of this stuff. He had like Viking helmets and Saxon swords and great cryptid photographs and saber-toothed cat skull, like amazing stuff. He was just a lovely guy to say, come and spend the day when we have breakfast. So I got to drive through this whole thing into New Hampshire as well, all the way to Vermont. And it's just, you live in a beautiful country, you know. You really got some space out there. Even in New York, you guys have got some real, space there.
I say this all the time. When I grew up in the 70s, and I've listened to some interviews with you as well. I definitely have been following your career in this as a researcher and also as just, this general interest. I think we all grew up with In Search Of. Yes. And basically the theme is, that I got from it is, Bigfoot lives in the Pacific Northwest, and he's nowhere near the East Coast. And that's when, as you grow up a little bit later, you go, wrong. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Dogman. Primary sightings for this cryptid right now are on the East Coast. And you get it from New York State, Canada, all the way down into basically the Appalachian Trail is the Bigfoot Highway. And it shocks the heck out of you. So, when you see all these different areas, and I remember driving back from Pennsylvania, and I don't know how you do it sometimes, Ron, but you're on this highway, and they clear cut, acres, and you look in during the day, you're looking through this forest, and it is black. And imagine just being stuck there. Think about this. I mean, we're all researchers. You go out in the field, we're boots on the ground. Just imagine you're walking in this and you're going, what person in their right mind says, it's really dark in there. I think we should just take a walk.
Yes. But I think it's the thing, like you said, it's an idea that there's something out there beyond us that we have to, if not, at least let's recognize that there's the possibility of something out there, and that's what keeps us going.
I think that's right. It's all about, it should be about the joy of research. Clearly, people want to find something. It's not, otherwise you'd just take a walk in the woods for fun, wouldn't you? Without looking around, or you'd take a boat out on the lake, or do whatever you do. I think I've talked to so many people recently that go into such great lengths for their joy of research. I talked to a guy, Jonathan David Whitcomb, you might know him. He's been out in Papua New Guinea searching for the ropen in Indaba. The first time he went there, he didn't even know what the local lingo was. There's 100 different tribes there that speak different languages. It's really Stone Age in a way, lots of the rural aspects of it. And yet, he's a guy who said, okay, I'm going to go out and look for the ropen.
Right.
And this is apparently a very predatory creature anyway. It's not friendly. It's the same with I'm hoping to interview a guy called Michel Ballot, who's been searching for Mokele Mbembe for the last 20 years or so. And I'm speaking at a conference with him in Berlin in October.
Very nice.
And he's going to be coming over. I think he's got a Cameroonian wife, so his searches from the Cameroonian side of the Congo are safer, I think.
Right.
And here we are. He's out there in this wild jungle. I mean, this is a jungle you could easily get lost in and never, ever be found again. Huge animals, there's hippos, there's crocodiles. And the creature itself, Mokele Mbembe, is supposed to be very adverse to human interaction and often smashes people's boats to bits. It's like a diplodocus or something like that. Patasaurus, perhaps. But it's mostly aquatic. It stays in the water. They've got other things like the ngubu, which is, I think that's kind of like a monoceratops, like a one-horned triceratops, I'd call it, but a ceratopsid. Right. And the bielo, which I think is like a stegosaur type animal. All these creatures tend to spend some time in the water, by the sense of it, and are very adverse to human people. The pygmies aren't very friendly there in the jungle. There's a communist faction that you can get, and there's a civil war on the other side. And yet he's here 20 years saying, "Yep, I'm going to keep going." I'm looking for it.
Uh,
And that to me is astounding.
right. So, what draws you to lake monsters? And I know that you look for things that go bump in the night in the forest as well. But as far as lake monsters go, this is really your thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not an expert on lake monsters in the way of Loch Ness, in the way that somebody like Roland Watson or Adrian Shine would be. Excuse me, sorry. But the thing that first fascinated me about it was, of course, In Search Of, like Brian has mentioned, having Nimoy tell you what's out there. Well, when Spock tells you something's going on, you listen, right?
Yeah, you do.
And that Loch Ness venture that they did, and also the Ogopogo one that they did, really had a big bearing on me. And Arlene Gull's book, $1 Million Monster, I think it was, Ogopogo, the $1 Million Monster. I have it on my bookshelf. I had it for years and years since I was a young teenager. Really stuck with me, and I thought, it's not just Loch Ness, it's everywhere. And then when you look at Britain, actually, loads of the lochs, loads of the lakes, and the coasts especially, there's lake monster and sea monster sightings all around for hundreds of years and right up until the present day. Not just Loch Ness. I think we mostly see them in Loch Ness because it's a big body of water and there's lots of tourists there year round. But in the other places, we see them around. There's Morag of Loch Morar, of course. There's been quite a few sightings there. That's a very underpopulated lake. Bow Nessie, as we mentioned, in Lake Windermere. There's been, I think, 10 sightings there since 2006, and some in the past. Teggy, the monster of Lake Tegid in North Wales, or Lake Bala, as it's called in English. That's one of my favourites. Nice Welsh lake, 4 miles long. That's it.
4 miles
There's
only?
4 miles only. It's very deep. But there's a 12-mile river, the River Dee, that goes out into the estuary there, into the Mersey, near Liverpool. So, in many cases, there's a way in and a way out here. There was the River Arun monster, that's which is very similar to the Barmouth estuary monster, a very crocodilian type of animal. Pembroke Dock monster, that was seen in 2003. You might have seen that, a massive marine saurian. It looked like they just swam into the dock. Was about 5 cars long, seen by a whole pub full of people. Goes on, Salton Cove chameleon, so named because it was seen coming out of the water, arching its back like a plesiosaur, like a type of animal. It was photographed as well, arching its back on a bank of seaweed. It was chasing mackerel around the bay. They were beaching themselves. And one of the witnesses that saw this creature, saw it for about half an hour, basically said that as it arched its back, when it was on top of the seaweed bank going to trying to stalk these mackerel again, it changed colour, it turned black, and then when it headed off back into the water, it turned greenish brown again.
Wow.
That's the only example of one of these creatures changing colour. And you hear over the day, it was kind of a black, it was kind of a grey, it was kind of a green, a brown, and this, that. And it got me thinking, perhaps they can change colour in some way. The Plymouth crocodile, 2015, 20-foot long creature, crocodilian-looking creature with a sort of a Nessie type neck. That was photographed several times swimming around near a boat. And it goes on and on. And my favourite, and I will stop speaking after this, I promise, was the Thamesden, the Thames River monster, River Thames monster that was spotted. It was actually the catalyst, the main catalyst for me to start writing this book in 2016. 3 times it was filmed. First from the Emirates cable car that goes over to the O2 Centre across the Thames. 3-humped creature, large hump, middle-sized hump, small hump, about 50, 60 feet long, emerges in the middle of the Thames and submerges. And I was excited. I get out onto the water in 2016 on a boat. I'm there for 2 weeks looking for it. I have to go on holiday, visit my wife's family in the Middle East. There's a second video sighting. With this, what looks like a serpentine creature is spotted by a bunch of friends on a pleasure cruise. And the other friends, they're talking about some rainbow somewhere. You can see they haven't seen it. And whoever's filming, girl's filming, she's zooming in thinking, what the hell is this? Huge. And it makes an S shape when it's swimming, so it's not a whale. It's not a fish. And then a third sighting on one of the speedboat tours, an American tourist snaps it near Docklands near Canary Wharf, coming out, this massive hump coming out of the water and going back in.
Yeah, I remember seeing some video of this.
There's
And-
3 pieces of video, independent.
Well, I don't remember which video, but I remember it almost looked like a drone footage. So I guess it's the Emirates
The cable.
cable.
Yeah.
And I, unfortunately, we're so jaded today. Everybody says, "Oh, that's CGI." No, this got me excited, and then I started looking a little bit of it, and then my fatherly duties had a kick in, so it kind of went to the back burner there.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think the role of dinosaurs is in these cryptids, these creatures?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Let's talk about that. What do you think that we're dealing with here?
Sorry again, Ron?
Say that again, Ron.
Yeah, I was thinking about what do you think that we're dealing with here? I actually asked Dr. Carl Schroeder about what he thinks we're dealing with when we talk about the Loch Ness Monster, and he claims that we could be dealing with a reptile that just simply is adapted to that particular environment. What do you think is going on here?
I've got to be honest that my opinion isn't very popular, but I'm a complete 100% advocate of the plesiosaur theory. And the reason for that is when you try to think of the monster imposters that it could be a Wels catfish. Okay, that's fine. Maybe some back sightings if there was a Wels catfish there. But then what about when you have the head and neck sightings or the multi-humps? It could be an otter. Well, they never get longer than 4 feet long and never that long even in Loch Ness. When they're seen there, it's very hard to find them. Could be a seal. Yeah, but you recognize seals pretty much straight away. You might be fooled for a second, but not for very long. And again, the neck length and the body length is wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be a sturgeon. Well, what about the tail fluke? What about the flippers? What about the scooted back? These are all things that don't really match it. But when you have a 40-foot long animal described, or especially with some of the land sightings which you'd find in Roland Watson's book, When Monsters Come Ashore, we're talking about an otter or a humpback, long tail, 4 flippers, long neck with a small head. There's nothing else it could be. People say a seal, perhaps, that we don't know about, but just when you have to make lots of mental twists and turns to explain away something that's easily explained by an animal that we once knew existed. I think it's safer to say when it looks like a dinosaur, when it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a dinosaur.
Right. And we have that iconic photograph, the surgeon photo of this creature coming up out of the water, right? That still is burned within our minds.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before at a previous interview that we did. That one uncropped photo is so hard to explain away. Whenever you see this creature within contact with the Loch Ness is, a little over a mile wide, and you see something with the far shore in the background, you give this thing a bit of a scale, and it looks like you're seeing something living on the surface. And I know that's not a very popular opinion, seeing that photo has been, opened, debunked by, most of the professionals in this field. But there's something about one photo that the search photo that simply made me think that this was an actual animal that was filmed.
Most of the times, I think people are finding or seeing or photographing real animals, whatever they may be, in Loch Ness and other places. In Loch Ness, there's a specific reason why I think that most of the sightings are genuine. Not all, because it's a hard body of water to look at with the distance, and most people aren't carrying professional cameras, etc., around with them. But the one thing I do notice about Loch Ness is this: 250,000 to 350,000 visitors every year. Actually, when you look around the loch when you're there, it's not very built up. At night, it's completely dark almost. The fact that there's only between 4 and 8, and of course we had a lot of sightings last year, but generally between 4 and 8 sightings every year, actually doesn't make sense if they're mistaken identity, because with all of the people's eyes wanting to see Nessie being trained on the loch, there should be many, many more mistaken identity sightings every year. There should be hundreds, but there aren't. There's 2, 3, 5 maybe, which goes to show that the people who are actually reporting something really felt convinced they saw something. Not a wave. And the waves do move strangely there. They really do move in an odd way. They've got these weird currents. It's very deep. The wind hits the loch in a strange way too. And if you stand up on a hill, I actually went on a hike above. I was at Fort Augustus, and I checking out the recent sighting of Ricky D. Phillips, the head and neck, the River Oich sighting. So I stayed there for 3 days, and I hiked around the area as well. I walked all the way down the Caledonian Canal to Loch Kytron, and I just went everywhere. Anyway, I went up into this beautiful pine forest up in the hills called Altna Creek. And I got there, and I got this overview of the loch, and several times you could see these long, sort of wavy waves happening. And then I get my binoculars out and look further down the loch, and sure enough, about a mile away, there was a boat that had passed. And yet, the bow waves were still coming. And I said to myself, well, in a place like Loch Ness, clearly, you get used to the way the boats are underwater, the way the water works very quickly. You would really, really have to see something, especially with the pressure on that kind of sighting, to report it. And everybody's reports are like that. I saw an animate, living creature come up. I saw it. I didn't see strange wave disturbance or the back of the seal. And by the way, when seals get into the loch, it's very rare. It's very hard for them to get there, but it's almost everybody knows straight away. They're very conspicuous. Excuse me. They've been seen en route, usually on their way there too. So it's an animal that's captured very quickly. We don't really have an explanation for what people are seeing, if it's not, in my mind, if it's not some sort of prehistoric living creature. It seems to match that description everywhere in the world, not just here.
It's something that's very interesting, and I don't, people that are fans of this subject, they come with a lot of questions. But as a researcher, you have to really take everything in. And one of the things that people just dismiss it, but it's so true, that when you are interviewing somebody who's seen something, Loch Ness, whatever, Lake Champlain, these are people that have spent their life in the area. They know every nook and cranny. And when something's out of whack, they know it. And when they tell you, I saw 20-foot hump and a head come out, there's no reason. They know, they're telling you the truth. There's really not much money into this. I mean, Loch Ness is Loch Ness. The new photos, fantastic. Maybe that'll draw a couple more tourists. But in general, no one's making money off of this thing.
No way.
So it's not like you'd say, well, they're making a ton of money. No, if someone's coming out and telling you that I saw the hump come out, I saw a flipper, it came on shore, and of course you're going to say, are you sure about that? It's not to be condescending to the witness, but it's like you just want to make sure that they're telling you what they told you. But these people have definitely seen it. They know it. It's kind of like when you come home or something and something's off or something's missing. You know something has taken place.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking, when you mentioned Ogopogo, I got in a lot of trouble for that one. We went to Canada. We went to the lake where Ogopogo is.
Oh, wow.
And I was there with my wife and my bull terrier, and we took a week off. So I finally pull up to the lake, and I'm sitting on the shore there because not being there ever before, you got to look for a great vantage point, and I was thinking maybe we'd get lucky. And I'm sitting, and we're sitting, and after about 20 minutes, my wife looks at me and goes, "What are we doing?" And I said, "Just keep looking at the lake." And she's like, okay. And she looks, and another 10 minutes go by, and she goes, "No, seriously, what are we doing?" I said, "Well, just look at the lake." And she's looking at me, she goes, "What the heck are we doing?" I said, "Well, there's Ogopogo." And she goes, "What? Ogo who?" And I said, "Ogopogo, it's like Loch Ness Monster." She goes, "Turn the car on and get me the back to where we were."
Well, that's another good point, though, Brian and Andy. So, because there is definitely a tourist built around these little water cryptids, people so if this is indeed a reptile, it has to come up to breathe. So, how do we account that there's not more sightings being taking place?
Well, there's a very good explanation for this. Okay. So there's a few explanations, but I think it's a combination of all of them.
Okay.
So I've been discussing with a colleague recently I forget which river it's in Australia, but it's nicknamed the butt-breathing turtle. So it has a cloacal bone in its butt, essentially, that some sort of air sac there, or that's able to basically turn water into oxygen. And they think it can stay down for over a week, this thing, and it's a small turtle. Now, some people have said, well, plesiosaur and turtle morphology isn't really that different.
No, they're both reptiles, right?
Yeah, and they're even in shape, etc. And perhaps these creatures have that ability as well. Now, that's not something you can determine from fossils, of course. But if they're not doing that, the crocodile can stay down for an hour. Maybe something that's 40 feet can stay down for 4 or 5 hours. I don't know. But if they're not able to convert oxygen from water, I would imagine that they just come up very, very occasionally and just poking ahead above the surface a little bit and taking some air. Now, if you're living in Loch Ness, it's black in there. It's so filled with peat you can't see anything. This animal must have some way of finding its way around, some ability. Now, in Lake Champlain, some people have talked about the possibility of echolocation. It's not been proven, but they did capture some cetacean-like noises.
Yes.
Yeah, well, they compared it. I think that was with Elizabeth Muggenthaler. They compared it to, I think it was a sperm whale. And so, say this might not be. It might be a form of communication, but they have to find their way around somewhere. I would think at least they had very good hearing, at the very least, or eyesight if they're in very deep dark water, and that when boats are going over, that they're not there. And what's conspicuous about Loch Ness, especially if you look from the Fort Augusta side, which is right at the end of the loch, it's not near Inverness. Actually, most of the road doesn't go around the loch on one side of it. It goes up into the hills and all the way around until you get to Joris, and so you don't see the loch from that side. There aren't many habitations on the other side. Most of it, the loch is obscured by trees. So when you're driving around it, you actually don't see a lot of the loch. There's not many habitations, and then again, of course, once it's dark, I took a little clip there, and this was in the most populated town apart from Inverness, around Loch Ness and Fort Augustus. I took a little clip at night, and it was black. There was nothing. The occasional light far off in the distance. This is this huge, most popular tourist destination in the Highlands, and yet, where are the lights? Where are the people? Where's the industry? It's a very pristine area. So I think you find that in a lot of places. Is that actually, and probably it's the same in Lake Okanagan, actually, these bodies of water, they aren't over-inhabited. They're not illuminated throughout the night. If a creature is nocturnal, if it's cautious, there's a chance of staying out of sight.
That's right.
Yeah. Just very briefly, I was just going to pop onto the top of that. I know there was a long diatribe, but a lot of people who've witnessed the Loch Ness Monster have also witnessed it submerging just before boats come into view. That's been a very common feature with witness sightings. And that the creature suddenly looked around and submerged, and 30 seconds later, they've noticed a boat coming up the loch.
Well, I was talking to Ron about this a while ago, and I've always had this theory that all these different lochs, including even in North America, I have a feeling that we may find it when we explore under the water, that there may be a connection there, and maybe this creature is the same exact creature that we're seeing in Scotland and the UK, that you see in Lake Champlain, you see Ogopogo, and almost like vents, that we have in the ocean. Some of them, the trenches that are down there, the Mariana Trench, is how many thousands of feet deep. And what's to say this creature isn't just, traveling back and forth or using the open waters?
Yeah. Well, I think there's sightings in the North Sea, there's sightings in the Irish Sea, in the Atlantic as well, and around the coast of the US. I think that these creatures, many of them, not all of them, are at some point ocean bound. Now, the reason I went to the River Oich with that sighting was because if you it's parallel with the Caledonian Canal. But and it comes out of Loch Ness, at the end of Loch Ness. But if you walk down far enough, finally you get to Loch Kaitra, then you get to Loch Oich. And then from there, Loch Lochy and so on and so forth. And it's a very long journey with some shallow patches all the way down to the sea. But they have been seen in Loch Linear, which I think is the Loch Hill, which is actually in the sea at the very end there of that Highland Drift. And they have been seen in all the other bodies all the way up of water. So either they're distinct populations that inhabit all of these connecting waters at some point, or they very infrequently come back and forth from the sea. My old theory used to be that they're seen in Loch Ness when they're in the loch, and when they're coming from the sea, and when they're not seen, it's because they're not there.
Right.
But
that explains a lot. Yeah, that also explains why there's a breeding population don't necessarily to be prevalent in the water.
The breeding population there?
It could take place in the ocean, sure.
Sure, it could take place in the ocean. But another thing to think about for Scotland, anyway, is that you have 31,460 lochs and lochans in Scotland alone, and many of them connect to the sea. Many of them are sea lochs, and at least many around that area of Loch Ness, Loch Lomond, Loch Morar, etc. Loch Lochy, Loch Oich, Loch Garry, they've had monster sightings at some point. There's a fantastic salmon and trout population throughout the entire sort of Scottish river system year round. There's just so much food, and most of these lochs and lochs, think of how pristine Loch Morar or Loch Ness is. You get to the small ones, there's really nobody there. There might be a homestead, maybe somebody owns that bit of land and they've got a house or two houses. There's no one. Scotland is the darkest place in the British Isles, and it's so literally so wild and so pristine. I truly believe it's possible, it's not proof, I understand, that there could be a good reasonable population moving around that part of the island. Possible.
Another theory that was thrown out, and after doing some research on one of my favorite creatures of the planet, a lot of people point to the Plesiosaurus as the creature, a dinosaur-related creature, because of the look, the shape, the fins, some of the photos.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to throw something out there. What's to say this isn't actually a giant octopus? And hear me out for a second. The reason why I'm saying that is because octopus, being extremely intelligent, can transform and become just anything. They could change their shape. They could change their color. They can camouflage very well. I've seen octopus look like a mini drone, and then it opens up and it's actually an octopus.
Sure.
I know it doesn't fit the general feel with the humps or whatever, what have you, but I mean, something with very large tentacles coming up and down, an octopus tentacles could do that.
Certainly could, but then you have to remember something else as well, which is, one, they've been seen on land in the shape that they're in this plesiosaur-like shape, but two, octopus generally mimic something that's in their environment in order to convince the onlooker, the predator, whatever, that it is that thing. So if it was mimicking plesiosaur,
so then it has to be there. No, well, that was part of the problem with the octopus theory, was the fact that it has to have a vehicle to mimic. But it does. I mean, it could have a long memory, and one. Through generations, it's almost like Native American tales. Throughout time, we don't know how these species act, or if they act with their offspring or whatever. They could, mom could be doing that because grandma did it, and because great grandma did it. Yes. And basically, there's point A or zero where they saw the Plesiosaurus there. They became the Plesiosaurus to avoid the predator, and it just got translated down the line. Just a theory. I was never really fond of it, but
sure. But this is the point, Brian, you're making, and Ron, is that you have to keep your mind open to everything. For me, I believe everything in life is simple. when you're looking for
Right.
a complicated excuse to explain, because really what we're trying to do with the plesiosaur theory is it's because of a philosophical worldview. We have to explain away this plesiosaur presentation. If there was no dinosaur extinction, if there was no geologic column, we wouldn't have to say to ourselves, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's the other. We would just say, oh, the plesiosaurs are still living. We've got all these descriptions of them. We just need to find them now. It's a worldview that makes us make that explanation. Because otherwise, if they are still living, how do we explain their absence in a geologic column? And I would actually say, from a materialist point of view, well, you've already got the coelacanth, and you seem to have coped fine with that one. The only difference between that and a giant aquatic reptile is size and species. It's just the same as finding a dinosaur alive swimming in the sea. No different. That's in the geologic timescale. 65 million years. That's what they're talking about with the coelacanth. And yet, all of this is really based upon an assumption that the fossil record is accurately interpreted, and two, that we have all the fossils there are to find of all these creatures, which actually is a very scant record. It's mostly marine invertebrates, and then this tiny percentage of vertebrates on top that we're trying to piece together to make some sort of explanation about what happened. But it is just philosophical. So I grew up in a church, and I would say my worldview would be a religious one. Now I have to check myself all the time when I'm researching this, because I know how easy it would be in my worldview to accept these things based upon my worldview. Because if I've got a religious worldview, well, then sure, they're still dinosaurs, right?
Right.
But I still need proof. I can't just say I believe it.
Hey, St. Columbus saw the Loch Ness monster on the river, so I mean that's pretty good.
Yes, exactly, and that was documented.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that I really like to look at as far as research goes. Is the documentation. We're talking about a sighting of something that looks remarkably like the Loch Ness monster in the river Ness, not even in the loch itself. I dated right around what was it, about 500, I guess, is what we're looking at there. And also, or was it before 500?
I have it somewhere correctly. I'll just bring it up. I would say 525, but I could be wrong. It was 565 AD.
Wow, right, there we go. Well, we're close, within 60 years. Pretty cool. But we have this sighting there. And also, if you looked at the pick that's around Loch Ness, we also see this, this great type of what appears to be a worm, for lack of a better word. But so there is definitely that precedent for something in those waters going far beyond the surgeon's photograph.
There definitely is. And I mean, all across the northern part of Europe as well, you have these similar orms, serpent-like animals depicted all across Scandinavia as well, like in Storsjön and Storsjöodjuret or Storsey and Selma. There's depictions everywhere, and they're stylized.
It is.
Like, I mean, what about the Piests and the Kelpies and that Irish folklore side of things? So it'd be your realm as well, Ron. It's they're depicted in a very serpentine manner. What about the Viking longboats?
Absolutely,
with this long neck with a small head on top of it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
on the Dragon of the North Sea.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Whenever we look at the records from Lindisfarne, you hear about reporting that the dragons were coming from water, and this all is something that nothing is created out of. We human beings like to borrow from other people. We like to synchronize, and I think that when we start looking and investigating lake monsters from a very human perspective, it becomes far more complicated than talking about the survival of a prehistoric animal into present day. We're talking about something far-reaching than just that possibility. Now, last year I wrote a book entitled "On Aquatic Monsters of the Great Lakes."
Oh wow!
And I was looking at things, on the Great Lakes, and so I necessarily had to begin with Loch Ness and then look at Lake Champlain and then to the Great Lakes. And what's so is all these lakes were formed around the same geological period between 14 and 10,000 years ago. Talking about all these things being formed and sightings of monsters looking, very, very, very much like it. Let's put it that way. So we have Lake Champlain, we have Lake Erie, which is, in part of my state here in Pennsylvania, and then we have the Loch Ness Monster of these beasties that all have these long necks, these flipper-like appendages. What are we to make about this? Even the Native American populations around these areas talk about these serpents, and we even find Indian effigy mounds of things that look very snake-like or very crocodilian. That is far away, 1,000 miles from the nearest crocodile. What do we do about this?
Well, I just think sometimes it's important to just accept the evidence, because once again we're talking about we have an exclusion against this evidence in our vernacular. We have a scientific exclusion, but really, I don't want to get too far into this because I don't feel well qualified enough to talk about it. But I used to be a strong believer in the dating system of the geologic column and Earth time. And even though I was religious, I guess I would be what you call a theistic evolutionist, which is somebody who believed in God but believed that he did it through millions of years. That's what I used to be. Then I found out about correlation. Now I'm simplifying here because of my understanding of it, but essentially what I found out was that the geologic column doesn't exist in any one place in that order anywhere in the world, that they have to correlate geological strata from one country to the next all around the world. Fine, no problems. And how do they correlate that? Well, they use index fossils. And they say, okay, this rock strata in Argentina has this index fossil, and this rock strata in the UK has this index fossil, therefore they are the same age. You say, fine, okay, that's okay. How do you know the index fossil is that old? Well, because it's in that rock strata. And then I'm thinking, hang on a second. Wait a minute. That's circular reasoning. You're using them to date each other. So it means that the assumption of how it happened is necessary in order for you to make it right. Now, again, I'm not a geologist. I'm not qualified to speak about this. But that simple principle, I know it's more complicated than that. I understand that. But that's the defining principle beneath it. That just undid the whole thing to me. So I'm not coming from this thing from a religious perspective. That's not my purpose. But it at least gives me the freedom to say, well, actually, it's debatable that things haven't lived on. We still have much more work to do on that column before we can say this is 100% proof.
Right. We humans, we have this hubris to it. We don't leave a lot of gaps. Right? We like to try to cover or have all the solutions that we think that we can. You pointed out earlier in the program about not discovering all the fossils out there. I remember when I was a kid, we had about 5 dinosaurs to play with. That's what we had. Now watching Jurassic Park and things, the world has exploded by all of these new fossils that are being discovered. And I think that is going to happen in the future as well, too. I think that eventually we will come across some very tantalizing fossils that probably, closely even mirror more about what might be inside of Loch Ness. But we really don't know all the animals that went before us.
That's very true. And yeah, like you say, in China especially, with the opening up of China, all the new fossils that have been discovered there, it's really amazing. Everywhere else in the world. I was talking to Todd Distel from Timberley Dollar Bigfoot, and I interviewed him, and I asked him about this new. We mentioned the news about the new missing link, and he said it's not a missing link. He said, these are assertions. We don't prove anything in science. We look for facts. So with this, we're not offering you proof of another human or another ape. this is just what we found and we're looking into at the moment. Now, working in the medical field for 10 years almost, having lots of colleagues that were involved in lots of high-tech research, medical research. One of them first explained to me when I first got into it. They said, because I love medical tech, and I was talking to him about it. He said, listen, what you have to understand is, when we say scientists can now do X, Y, or Z, it means we started the research. We've started the research, and we hope to get this. We've created a theory about what we should be able to do with this. And 10 years from now, you'll find out if we were successful or not, or 5 years or whatever. That's how these things work. They've rewritten things all about velociraptors. They've got feathers now. Right? Yep. What about the feathered dinosaurs? And then other people say, well, actually, most velociraptors weren't even bigger than a chicken. Most raptors, okay, fine. So maybe they were. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. But then I'm perfectly willing to accept some dinosaurs can have feathers. But this is not the presentation from the first Jurassic Park to now.
Right.
Is it?
Right.
This is a different kind of thing that we're looking at.
Right. And then from I'm 49 years old, so in the last 40 years, we went from believing that all dinosaurs were extinct, and this is climatic event 65 million years ago, to now the assertion that birds are the living relatives of dinosaurs. They never indeed did go completely extinct. So we have to go too. Yeah. So what we're talking about is the idea that, again, if we're talking about the plesiosaur theory, which I think probably the one as well, talking about 65 million years of evolution that went into this creature as well too. It is adapted to these freshwater lakes, and what it's capable of doing within that period of time, evolutionary wise and adaptation wise, it might be a very remarkable creature.
Yeah. No, I think adaptation could be. Obviously, we've seen within established species that there are adaptation from island to island, from locale to locale. I used to talk about this for Bigfoot, for example, the different types of Bigfoot around the world and how they would be adapted to their own environments in the same ways that you have a polar bear, a black bear, a brown bear, a Kodiak, a moon bear, a panda. They're all bears, but they are very different to one another. Obviously bears, on first sight, every single one of them. If you never heard of a polar bear, you only saw grizzlies, you'd know that was a bear as soon as you saw it. Wouldn't think anything else. And I think it's the same with maybe what could be plesiosaurs living on in some bodies of water around the world, that they are probably of a variant of that plesiosaur species, that they may have changed somewhat over time, but I think still within its type. It would still be very easy to distinguish it as a plesiosaur.
It's funny you mentioned that because of the ice melting up in the Pacific Northwest, the grizzly bear has been landlocked, and normally it would get onto the ice and go to its northern habitat during the winter. So what's the polar bear? The polar bear. No, the polar bear. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that's right. But the problem is, and the polar bear has been mating with the grizzly bear, and apparently it's created this monster of a bear. It's almost like the liger, the lion tiger thing. Yes. And this thing
the combination of the both leads to something gigantic.
It's incredible how big this new species of bear is. And what you just said was brilliant because let's say there was Plesiosaurus there and there was another type of creature there, and in order to survive, it adapted. What was it? If a monkey needed a tail, I remember in school they grow a tail. If life was that easy, it would be great. But but maybe there is something to that logic behind it, that these creatures not only adapt but they change. So the original creature that was seen in the Patterson Goblin film, let's say, is not the same Bigfoot that you see now. There's a lot of talk about this creature called the Dogman, which is basically a werewolf. But
it's popular right now.
It's unfortunately it's hugely popular. It scares the hell out of me. But these things are apparently real from a lot of the research, and I'm not going to go into that research of why I'm saying that they're more on the real side. But there's a variance of this creature It goes from that, Van Helsing movie, 15-foot real werewolf, to almost something that looks like a baboon, something that looks like a cross between a Bigfoot and a werewolf. So maybe some of these creatures are adapting and surviving in their own right. It's pretty amazing that such a small group of islands in the UK has so many of these creatures there. And when you think back on it, I love the lore of King Arthur. I know Ron loves it too. And because Ron has a new book coming out soon, and he goes into a lot of the folklore and on fairies.
Oh wow!
But we always heard about dragons way back when, right? Everything in the UK was dragons. That's a black dragon. That's dragons. These. Let's say, what's to say that it didn't come from a plesiosaurus, or it's somehow maybe the Loch Ness monster is a dragon. It's just a water dragon.
Well, yeah, I think things. These reptile-like creatures, the big reptiles, have been seen all over the world. Have been termed as being dragons of some kind. Look at China. There, how many different types of lung do you have? The water dragon, the sky dragon. I know it's hard to pick these things apart because oftentimes in folklore and in history, they're inextricably linked with religious or spiritual subtext. Now, same here with the woodwoes. We've got depictions of the large, hairy man, the woodwoes, holding a club all of our churches and our abbeys and our medieval tapestries, even before we knew about apes and anything like that in this country, from the 13 and 1400s onwards. And there they are, these old abbeys still. We've got some very old churches and abbeys still standing with these beautiful carvings of large, hairy men carrying sticks and clubs. And some of them have very conical shaped heads as well. And then we have the Green Man myth, of course, and many people have described seeing a British Bigfoot or whatever it is over here, actually described that they didn't see it. And suddenly they became aware of its face poking out of the bushes. But before that, it looked like the bush was looking at them before it exited and stared at them. And that, to me, it's amazing. I was actually investigating a British Bigfoot sighting along the River Medway, which is a tributary to the Thames estuary, and it happened this Monday, just past, and it's this area is desolate. It's just marshes and flat land and a few farms. It happened along the back of a horse paddock, and a lady who lives there, she was feeding her horse that morning, and several times recently she'd noticed that the horse's ears were turned towards the edge of the paddock, which actually went down an embankment 30 feet into a disused rail line. So it's used for industry. It runs all the way through that part of the country there to some old closed down factory. And she did a recreation of it. What she saw, the thing walked along the back, along these bushes, had that large loping stride that you see. She didn't know how to describe the stride, but she did it perfectly. Almost looks like a hippie with his hands in his pockets with the big forward leg stride, right? That with a sort of bent over back. And then she said she saw it, it saw her, and its head and just below the neck was above a bush at the end, and then it ducked behind the bush, and the dog tore off after it, and it was gone. She got there, there was nothing there, no footprints, frozen ground. And I stood by the bush. The bush is 7 feet tall, so if it's a person, and she couldn't make out any details, she said, apart from the fact that it was all dark. That's all she could see. There's been many sightings around there, banging on things. A local couple I was taken to their house who've moved now. They'd seen several of them walking around the place. Lots of different sightings. And yet this is Britain in 2019.
Yep.
Right? And this woman, she doesn't know anything about Bigfoot. The friends that they'd also seen something, they didn't know anything about it. It's not even the cryptozoologists in this country. Well, fortunes they are, but primarily, but the people who are also involved in this say, no way, it's not possible. And yet, here we have hundreds and hundreds of sightings. And I was investigating the sightings, I reported them in a book. I was dubious, but these days, I'm meeting more witnesses face to face and saying, It's not popular here. It's not like in the US where it's a cool thing. It's popular. If you tell anybody here you've seen a Bigfoot, you're likely to be considered crazy by your family, by everybody who knows you, and you would not go, not like a Nessie thing. That's no good for you anyway. Publicly, you talked about rewards earlier. You don't get a reward. Maybe the Sun or the Mirror gives you £200, and the only get after that is flack.
Yep.
You know, you just get attacked. The guy who saw the La Hoyt monster and photographed it, Ricky Phillips, I spoke to him. He's a #1 Amazon bestseller military historian. He's a writer. He was down there taking pictures for his new book. His phone was full up. It's old, so he was using Instagram to get a few shots. He saw it, pinch and snap, uploaded it to Instagram. And all the researchers are saying, how come he didn't get a background shot? How come he didn't have it on his phone? Why didn't he delete some of the things on his phone to save it? He's not a researcher. He's just a guy who writes military books. He saw it and thought, oh my gosh, and took the picture. And yet, that's scrutiny. That's scrutiny that we give them. And yes, we have to scrutinize these things, but we have to remember that they are unprepared for that. And anybody who wants to be a witness, and I'll say this to all your listeners, think twice before you tell anybody. Or at least be anonymous. You know, if you're going to tell us, guys, we'll let you be anonymous. Right, guys? We will not put your name out there. Because it's one thing, you know, not being able to see what you saw, but it's another thing dealing with the
backlash,
personal ramifications of that.
Yeah, we love hearing the stories, and we do research. We definitely will keep your name and very confidential, because there is ridicule. I know that firsthand because I have seen what I've seen as far as Bigfoot's concerned. Even my wife is just looking at me. My kids just shake their head, you know. And it's one of those things where you want them to experience it, but it's such an intense moment that you don't want them because it would scare the hell out of them. Speaking of this giant bipedal cryptid, there was a lot of talk, and initially I never thought it, I didn't believe in it, about this being a dimensional creature. Ron has just had an experience with footprints appearing when it was -3 or 5 or something to that effect.
It was -3 right outside of my house, which is very, very curious. Now, it seems the more I do research into whether it be ghosts or UFOs or what have you, they seem to be attracted to the people that's looking for them. Does that make sense? I've read it this time and time again, at least in the United States. I'm not sure if you find that as one. It seems like if you're looking for something, that something can end up looking for you as well. You found that to be the case in any of your investigations?
Well, not usually. So I've been on quite a few lake expeditions, but
it's hard to bring the lake to a person. Yes.
Yes, but I've been on a few Bigfoot expeditions here as well, and I'm actually this recent sighting that was made. We're going to stake out that sighting, that location for a few nights in the next few weeks. But when I was in Scotland at Loch Ness, when I went up that path into the Alton Creech, this deep dark forest, like you said, in Pennsylvania, where it's just black, you can't see light into the forest. This path is regularly walked upon during the summer months. There was nobody there, so I was up there, -3 Celsius, all wrapped up, but for 4 hours by myself. I didn't see one person. I didn't hear an animal. I didn't hear a bird tweet. I didn't see a squirrel or a deer. Nothing. So I'm up there, and I thought, this is beautiful. I've walked up to the top. I'm not looking for Bigfoot there at all. And I see a few trees have been pushed over onto the path. Now, I've been told that there are high winds in the area 2 days before I arrived. So I said, okay, high winds, fine. But they're right across the path in the two very consecutive, and the root ball is sticking up. So it's not snapped. I think, okay, that's fine. You know, just because a tree falls in the forest doesn't mean Bigfoot pushed it.
Right.
All right? That's not proof of anything. Trees fall and make funny shapes all the time. So, I walk on, I get to the top. I can't go any further. I can see there's some work being done on the upper path by the water companies. And it's a beautiful, really rural area. I see the loch and I start to come down. There's these beautiful waterfalls and all of the ground is covered in moss. It's beautiful. I'd say the elevation was about 90 degrees. And I was near the bottom of a little waterfall. I was photographing up to the top and the waterfall because I thought this is a great angle. And in the corner of my eye, I see a figure go behind a tree. It was a millisecond. And I say to myself, okay, Andy, this is the thing you've been talking about. If you really are stuck alone in this forest with something like that now, do you want to be here? Because remember, you think it's an animal, and if it's stuck behind a tree, it knows you're there and it's following you. What you going to do? And then I rationalised. I said, well, look, that's a flicker in the corner of the eye. That's something alerted you to look up. But at the same time, you didn't really see anything. Your mind can make up that detail. And you've got to tell yourself now, you have to be rational and say, that's not a sighting. So I start walking back down, a little bit freaked out, because, of course, I'm now a monster hunter in a position of seeing a monster, possibly. Which, nobody truly wants when they're there. It's nice to talk about it afterwards, but not at the time. And then I hear twigs snapping and things moving through the deep forest at the side of me. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of deer in this area. Now, you could be interpreting. And it actually gave me a great lesson in the fact of how many people have had experiences that they just chalk down to deer and was actually something else. And on the reverse, the flip side, how many people have had experiences with deer and other animals that they've chalked up to something bigger.
That's right. Well, this is what happened with me, and I will tell you, it's a very short little encounter. It's not really even an encounter. I wanted to get up to go to work one morning. It was probably about 6:30 in the morning. I went to go turn on my car, and it was about -3 outside. Schools are canceled and everything, but I still have to get to work. And as I opened up my front door on the snow was a footprint. It was probably about 10 to 12 inches. I put a dollar bill down beside it for scale, and I'm sure that we probably add this into the video as well. But it was completely barefoot. It was a barefooted human footprint, and it was about probably 6 inches, maybe 8 inches across the so it was cool. Now, the startling thing about this was that the one track just simply appeared in the middle of my yard. There was no tracks leading up to it. It was just one right-footed track that appeared. And then, several paces later, there was another right-footed track, no left foot yet. And then after a while, we see both sets of tracks walking rather pigeon-toed. And this goes on for a little bit, and then it just disappears. So I don't know what to make of that. It was as something had stepped out of a door with one foot and kind of jumped around a bit and then just stepped back into another doorway. So when we talk about portals and things of that nature, which is one of the things that I am very curious about and I'm researching to this day.
Yeah,
I don't know how to explain it. There's no rational explanation why there was barefooted tracks in my front yard that had no beginning and no end. I spoke to another investigator about this as well, too. These tracks were not of a biological animal because you only see one track at a time. It did not move the way a biological animal would move. It also appeared in this.
And this is where I was going with it before, because initially I never thought of the Bigfoot creature, cryptid, as being interdimensional or having mind speak. Some people call it telepathic abilities. Through your research and through what you have found, I mean, do you think this is plausible, a possible or a possibility with this regarding this type of cryptid, and does it transfer over to some of the other cryptids that we're talking about, the beasts of Britain and globally?
Yeah, when we think about portals, water has always been a natural type of portal area, especially when we think of the King Arthur legend with the lady in the lake and everything. Aren't we seeing animals that are not from this world, and these are kind of portals between this dimension and another dimension?
Personally, I in Beast of Britain, I was just focused on what I thought were animals. I did include a few black shuck reports, actually, and a few werewolf reports as well, because they could be an animal. They seem to be acting in animal-like ways. I did write a little blog, actually, called Peddling the Paranormal, a Default Excuse for Uncomfortable Truths. It was purposely provocative, the title. But what I looked at in there was past examples of people interpreting things through their religious or spiritual worldview or philosophical worldview.
Right.
And I specifically talked about what's his name, Moctezuma of the Aztecs,
Yes.
seeing Cortez come across the sea in these floating mountains, and them having that legend about the bearded gods coming back from across the sea, and basically just handing over practically his kingdom to him, which spelled the complete end of the Aztecs. Now they couldn't possibly have imagined how those mountains floated across the sea, or how the gunpowder weapons of the Spanish worked, and all these different things and technology that they had. It was the equivalent of an alien race, essentially, coming with high technology now and showing us things. Or if we were in the 90s now and somebody popped up with a smartphone and showed you everything in the world with the touch of a button, you'd be astonished. So I think sometimes our mind looks at things we can't understand, experiences we can't physically explain, and puts a spiritual prominence on them. Whereas Mindspeak, for instance, I think, so with the Grey Men of Ben McDwee in Scotland, some of the walkers who've been spooked out there say they have felt compelled to throw themselves off the cliffs when they've been running, or they've heard this creature. They've had this big fear build up. Lots of people who encounter Bigfoot talk about feeling a big fear or dread before or afterwards.
Yes.
Infrasound, I think, is a good explanation for that, because tigers, they think, use it to stun their prey to make them like statues, immovable. They use that to stun them, and maybe these creatures can use it either to drive you off. I've heard of experiences here in the UK with Neil Young and his research partner. They actually gave me an infrasound recording below 20 HC that they recorded in Harwood Forest, where there's been several sightings, and he's had sightings there too. And he said for some reason him and his research partner that night got freaked out. They decided to go back and sleep in the car. They didn't stay at a site where they knew they were having activity. These are really dedicated guys.
Right.
They're not like me running out of the forest,
Run!
freaked out. And anyway, they came back the next morning. They collected the recorder, and there was the sound. And there's this really low elephant-like rumble. Now, they couldn't explain, one, why they felt like they had to go. They went against their normal researcher interests in not staying around when they thought something was there, and they just left without knowing why they left. And yet that seems to have been taking place while they were there. So I imagine perhaps this sound has effects on your internal organs, on the way that your mind works, and perhaps it can, maybe they're not telepathically telling you to do something, but it invokes a response, a flight or a fight response of some kind.
I've been a very big proponent of infrasound being used by this cryptid since the beginning, and not only to instill the fear in you, but there are wavelengths and sound that can actually disrupt visual and the light spectrum. And one of the things that I thought, because everybody says the same thing. I just read it a couple days ago. Someone showed a Bigfoot down a strip of trees, and someone's like, "Oh, great! Another blurry photo of this supposed creature. Why doesn't somebody just take one for the team and run down there at it?" Well, one, you don't know what it's like to come up against a 900-pound creature that can. If a chimpanzee can rip your arm off out of your socket,
beat you to death.
Okay, and beat you
to death.
Beat you to death. What do you think something that's thousands of times bigger than a chimpanzee can do to you? That being said, I always thought that when this creature, and I'm surprised, I don't know if it wasn't prepared or not, but I had a feeling, and I'm going to throw this out at everybody, that this creature uses infrasound to play on your fears emotionally, just like you mentioned with the elephants and tigers and what have you. But also, the reason why most people get blurry shots is when this creature is aware that somebody else is in its area, its realm. Just like we talked about Loch Ness, where the people that live there know that something's out of place. So this creature's going to know something's up. It puts a protective infrasound or shield around it, and it does so that it cannot be seen. It blends into the foliage. It camouflages itself with that, and and that's why most of the photos that you get or video of this creature are blurry or
Uh-huh.
just distorted. And another case was we have something in this country, an eagle cam, and it was placed up in this nest so you can look down on the
I
nest.
remember
It's
this one. Yeah.
really high, so
Yeah.
you remember the footage. So the footage is, if you were just looking at it and you're not focusing on the trees in the ground below you, you would miss the monkey that was, or the monkey-esque type of creature that's having a ball. Okay, this creature is totally unaware that that camera's there, and because it's unaware, it has no reason to put up its defenses. Therefore, you got the clearer shot of it. And I would love to be able to go to some place that has. We have a couple of spots that we're going to be going to investigate in, where we've had our own experiences, our own sightings there. Nothing came up on any of this full spectrum infrared FLIR. I mean, it was just not there, but it was there. I'd love to be able to put something up and test this theory out. Unfortunately, like most researchers, we don't have the funds to actually get
Yes.
you know
Well,
the
that's
drones
the story
going
all around,
and
really.
and
Yeah.
what have you. And I think, like a lemur, this creature has a film that comes over its eyes. It works better in the dark. It can see in the dark. That's one of the other things. I'm assuming it knows when you're using a game camera because it can see the infrared, like those baby cameras that we have. We can't
Uh-huh.
see that light because it's not in our spectrum. But this creature, somebody of the night, can see, like, what's that big bright light over there? And they know what they are, and they know exactly what they're doing with it, and they break them. Every time you see one of those game cams, it's like you're lucky if you get a Bigfoot in there, but it's usually crushed or fall on the floor. They're very
That
smart.
I was just sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say I think those are really good theories actually. And talking about the game cam aspect of things, or if you talk about the blurry photos first of all,
Right.
I wonder if we all switched to analog means of capturing footage again, if that would be different.
I think it's better on analog.
Yeah,
Miss
yeah.
Mr. McGrath, I've been actually espousing that idea for years.
Oh
That's
wow.
absolutely why was the Goblin film so clear? I think that we are dealing with something technologically. I truly do. I think the digital just is not the great way to capture these things. I truly been saying that for years.
Definitely. Well, and in that case, I think that would be a great idea. I definitely endorse that. Of course, I have to get somebody to develop them, but that's okay.
Well,
And
if we can get
on
this,
top of that,
yeah, I was going to say, if we can get this going, just make the check out to Andy McGrath, Ron Murphy, and Brian Bowden for starting that Kodak Fuji thing, digital and
Oh, I
film
love
back up again.
That's right.
I
That's
love it.
right.
I'm always up for research buddies, by the way, just
Yes.
so you know that, and everybody knows that. It's because we shouldn't go out alone. I do go out alone quite often, and actually, I realize when I'm doing it that it's not the safest way to do things. Not just because there may be something you don't know that's out there. You might have a fall, you might have an accident, you could encounter some nutbag in the forest.
Right. Right.
Oh yeah.
Go with a friend. That's the best way forward for anybody listening out there.
Yeah.
But talking about this whole thing, it's all about. So talking about Bigfoot seeing the infrared cams, seeing the game cams, even if they've not seen the infrared. If you came into my house and you took one of the books off the shelf and replaced it with a different book, I would know something was different just from the
Yep.
moment I walked in. They're all
Yes.
books, right? They're just normal books, and yet somehow I know something is off because that's my living room. The forest is its living room. So if you put this game came up and you're using some horse then or some musk to disguise things and tramping through the forest with all your footprints and breaking branches and bending leaves of grass and twigs, it's like it's like there's been a party as far as this thing is concerned. That's what I think. You leave a massive signal of your presence, and it can be seen everywhere to something that lives in that environment.
Yeah, think about smell alone. I mean, you're bringing with your camera.
Yeah.
I know that, I live in a big hunting state, and you can buy the stuff where you try to wash your scent out of your clothes and everything. But just the idea of bringing, an indoor scent in the outdoors, that will linger for a while. I mean, we're not very clandestine, even at our very best.
You would have to be in the forest
That's what I do it.
for weeks. without bathing, which is
Yes.
you have to get yourself really gamey in order to
Yeah.
to get rid of the modern day everything on it. And
Right.
some of the things that people don't realize is a lot of like when you bring, I'm sure you travel with your phone because I know you do video.
Yeah.
Most of the electronic devices, even though you can sense it, there are waves that are given off by these devices. It's almost like little vibrations, and if you're hypersensitive to certain things, it's you just pick up on it. One of the greatest examples of what I'm talking about is for all the ladies that are watching and listening to the broadcast. If you've ever been pregnant, you can tell that someone's cooking beef like 16 miles away. The,
Yeah.
the nose on a female who is pregnant is just
Who's cutting cucumber? Everybody in the street, stop cutting cucumber.
Stop cutting it. They just know. And my wife was just like, get out of the house. She would say, like, oh, I could smell you were in the city or whatever because when I used to work down there. So we discredit the fact of the intellect and the intelligence of the longest running hide and seek champ.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know what? Sometimes you just don't want to be bothered. It's almost like putting up a do not disturb sign. I don't want to interact with you.
Well, yeah. Whenever you talked about infrasound, one of the best evolutionary adaptations that you can develop is the idea of infrasound, because you can be territorial without being confrontational. Nobody has to see you; you
Right.
see them. You simply alert people of your presence through some sort of feeling, and that's the way to be. I think that whenever we get deeper into this, because you can't just look at these things as flesh and blood, because even if they are flesh and blood, they are corporeal. They leave tracks behind. There is something to them, biologically that sets them apart from everything else. The idea of being elusive is one thing, but to really kind of explain that elusivity away from a scientific perspective does require you to go a little bit deeper, a little bit below the surface. And I think infrasound makes a great that's a great way to explain why these things are staying hidden and why we don't see them all the time. And the reason why we know so much about infrasound, especially here in America, is because it has a military component to it. You're able to interact with the enemy without causing any kind of mortal damage, but yet you're keeping them out of your particular zone. It's ingenious, and we know that this exists because animals around the world have this. This is a biological fact, and why something like a Bigfoot or a wood moose could not have developed this over time is it boggles the mind. I think that this is the reason why these animals are able to stay elusive. Now, when we talk about the idea of not being able to appear on digital, we're dealing with something a little bit different there. We're talking about a frequency, and it's something that might be a little bit more metaphysical, although it could have a biological component as well. So, but for right now, it seems metaphysical because we really can't explain it.
Yeah. I was just going to comment on one thing there. When Ron was talking about in the military aspect, that's a psychological operations unit. They actually use it. If you want to see what they can do and how they do it, look at what they did to Noriega. And then also look what they did actually in Iraq. They were able to be not even in the area, and they can literally put sound in your foxhole or in your ear as if they were talking right next to you. And they were saying things, they were whispering, you should give up.
Right, and the thing about the human mind, if there's a blank space, we will fill it in.
Right.
We'll fill it in with whatever images we want or whatever kind of sound we want. All we have to do is put out the possibility of something being out there, and we're very good at filling in the blanks.
I think that's right. It's like a painting sometimes, it's not really what the painter paints, but what he doesn't or she doesn't paint that gives you the impression of what the picture is.
That's right.
And your mind is making it that detail. So when you get some of these trick photos or magic eye photos, obviously it's been painted in a certain way to make your mind work in some way. It works for some people, doesn't work for others. But suddenly, and maybe this is the same, I always thought with Bigfoot, a lot of the descriptions have sort of dark, blackish, auburn, brown, and grey streaks in the fur. Lots of different streaks when they look at it closely. When the sun hits it from a certain direction, then it looks kind of auburn or it looks kind of silver. And I think there's something about the fur that allows it, when it's standing still, when it's holding its position, it's disguising itself in the forest, to just step out and almost seem invisible to our eyes because of the way we look for things. It breaks up the line of a figure. There's
Right.
these different colors, or these different strips of color you see in the fur sometimes.
I forgot the
I think
technical.
that's
I forgot the technical term for that, but this is the same type of thought process when we look with our children up at the sky and like, oh, that's a dragon,
yes,
and your mind is going to go to what you know.
yes, exactly.
But
There was a great Yowie hunters report of a mother and daughter on horseback seeing a juvenile Yowie and an adult Yowie near a creek, and they found a footprint and they were trying to cast it. The daughter had gone back to get some more water because they'd run out of water. Excuse me. And she'd seen the juvenile just standing really close up to a tree with its arms around it. And she didn't see it until it made a little sort of panicky grunt. She was about 5 foot tall, all dark. But she said it stood out from the tree, but she didn't notice it until it made a noise. And then she turned and saw it just completely stood still and set against the tree. She rides off. She gets the mother, and then they try to ride back. And she goes back. She loses the saddlebag. She goes back, and she sees the big one. And the big one is just literally standing with its arms up, like somebody's been running. It's taking sort of a breather against the wall, against this tree, and leaning forward, completely still with its head turned to the side. And they don't notice it. This huge, huge creature until it suddenly turns its head a little, and then they see it. And yet there it is, this giant ant, that kind of thing in the forest. It's got that feeling to it. Your eyes are not looking for what you don't expect to see.
Right. And we back in the 70s when the movie The Exorcist came out. One of my cousins, my parents' cousins, was in the music business, and the reason why that movie was so successful and so scary is the audio engineer had, I believe, a degree in audio production, and what they did was it was the first movie to start using infrasound, and I believe it was, I'm thinking, I want to say anywhere from 14 to 8 megahertz that's the level.
Yes.
And what
Yeah.
happens is, and I've played around with this too, where there's certain different decibels levels that you can hear it, but you're not hearing it. It's almost like that dog type of scale. But when
Yeah.
you start playing it, if you had different rooms set up with these different decibels, when you went into this room, it would just give you the chills, like you
Uh-huh.
would just like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And it used that in the movie at certain scenes to ramp it up, and people didn't know that they like a psychological operation was technically being played on them through the soundtrack.
It makes sense. I mean, we know that, as you said earlier, with the military things now, that such weapons are even on available to police forces to
Yes.
disperse crowds. There's a little dish that you just aim at the crowd and give them the sound, and if they're a certain age, it affects them. But on top of that, the music industry has been playing around with this kind of thing for a long, long time, as well as the film industry. It makes perfect sense to me. There's something at the beginning of the original Omen movie. Now, I thought it was the way that Jerry Goldsmith plays the intro there, but actually, there's something that hits you in the chest about the intro.
Right.
Just the way the music comes in and the deep sort of baritone vocals. I always thought that was a bit strange. How come I'm so creeped out by this when it really is just a movie I've seen. It's older than me. I've
I
seen
want to
it
watch it
numerous
now.
times. It's such a great movie. One
Yeah.
and two, anyway. And just a great movie, great soundtrack. And that's got something to it. It's the same with Jaws. Watching Jaws again recently. John Williams, the king of creating feeling through sound. But there's a lot to it in resonance as well, and you can do that when you're singing. You can use your voice in a certain way to make it carry further, and it will have an effect on people.
100%. And then you combine that with the visual, and then you have the perfect storm. And
Yeah.
this is what we have with, I think, this cryptid, and this is why it's so elusive. You have stories of big black cats in there. You also have stories, and when we go back to Dogman again, this creature, is very elusive. It just disappears. So the thought of it going interdimensional, and also having a lot of people have reports that when they see a dog man, they have nightmares. It's like it's in their head,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's. I mean, I was pretty up close and personal with one of these about 25 yards out at what we thought was. And my buddy's like, "Get in the car, man! Get in the car."
Oh, and what was it?
We don't know, but we have a lot of howls on the tape. We were actually by a cemetery in New York State, Letchworth Village. We caught it howls. We actually caught. You talk about tree structures. When it comes to Dogman, the general research is it doesn't build a tree structure like a Bigfoot would with the leaning trees and the intersecting. This thing took, I mean, ginormous trees, and literally off the ground they're hanging up, root ball in the air. It looks like an umbrella.
Wow.
It's the reverse. It's almost the reverse of what a Bigfoot would do on the ground. And then later that night when we go into the car, this thing was just sitting there, and unless they have a gigantic Great Dane out there in this area, which they didn't, it was just staring at us.
Was this on all fours?
No, it was it was sitting down. It was on its probably
Yeah.
haunch, like it would look like it was sitting. We could see the eye shine. Sitting, it was probably about 6 foot tall.
Wow.
And it's just sitting there watching us, and I happened to be my buddy's. It was about 25 yards off where the car was on another path, like a nature trail, and I'm seeing and I'm watching. I'm not taking my eyes off of it. I actually had to urinate. It was a very cold night, so I'm doing something that you should not do, people. Let me just tell you right now, don't do this, because if we're talking about canines, I'm marking territory right now, and I'm telling that animal right there, I'm the boss. I'm doing an alpha. And
oh wow, you took a pee.
yeah, and I right in front of it, and I didn't stop, and I kept, and then the problem we had, my buddy Al was there with it. He's watching this, and he's getting his stuff in the car. I still have my machetes on and whatever, and it's just watching us. And the next thing you know, it kind of like went down low. It disappeared, and at that
Wow.
point, that's when it hit me like we need to get in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may have had enough, maybe, but there was it wasn't aggression, no nervousness. I think this thing was like, wow, this whatever this human being is, he's freaking crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, now there's a couple cool points about the story there, Brian, is because in my research of Dogman, and I'm not sure if that's the same with you there, Andy, but I will get to the bottom of it. A lot of times they are associated with graveyards that they are found around. I mean, even throughout history, we have Anubis, which is the goddess of the god of the dead. In American Indians lore here in the United States, we find dogman type creatures associated with Indian burial mounds. Do you find the same thing there in Britain, Andy? Do you find these dogmen associated with particular graveyards?
Well, there's only two sightings actually associated with the same graveyard. Everywhere else, it seems to be in certain patches of the country up north, in Hull and Yorkshire and places like that. But this particular one, which was I think originally reported by Linda Godfrey, it's the Werewolf of Camberwell. I went to that graveyard, Old Camberwell Cemetery, in southeast London, and it was built in the 1800s. It's got 300,000 people in it, and
Wow.
it's a little way away from the new cemetery. Then you have Wells Park, Cader Park, and Sydenham. Crystal Palace Park, a very big park, very green part of London. And there's been sightings in all these different parks of Bigfoot-like creatures and big cats and things like that. So this fella, you might have heard this story a few times. It's October, it's 1996. He's cutting through this old cemetery. Now, there's 10 acres of forest in the cemetery. It's an old place, and it's also very woody. When I was in there, the graves are overgrown with leaves and trees, and the forest that kind of creeps through the graveyards, the older part of it. So he's cutting through anyway, and it's night time, and suddenly he's grabbed by something really strong. He's slammed into the ground, and this creature with a head like a German shepherd is looking at him and slobbering and growling and sniffing his body up and down. And then, just as quick as it started, it sprints off on its back legs, on its hind legs. And he says that he believed he was spared because he suffers from a disease that dogs can smell. which is strange that was the conclusion that he got out of that. One of those mundane details that sort of is a catch-all for me. Then again in 2004, an Irish lady had moved to London, is walking past the cemetery with a friend, and on the corner of the cemetery side of the road, she hears a really loud, weird noise, and they both turn to look. The girls, and a large tree in the corner of the cemetery is shaking violently. This is something really powerful shaking it with all its might, and they can hear like a weird, low growling noise, and they run away. In fact, they run in separate directions. That's how scared they were. And she had no interest in this subject at all. She became interested after this sighting, and she never walked past. She said she never ever walked past that graveyard again. She doesn't live in the neighborhood anymore, but the entire time she lived there, it's a big place, this graveyard. She never walked past.
It's very interesting that the association between graveyards and these creatures and death, the underworld, is really tight. Where we had my experience, literally we were no more than 100 yards from a graveyard, and it was an old graveyard with unmarked bodies in it. Through an old hospital, so I can attest that this creature is at least in New York State. It is hanging out by graveyards. Now, I don't think anybody has come up with the theory of why it's so attracted to it. Maybe it's because there are holes in the ground. There's bones. Maybe they're actually, and I'm going to say this, chewing on the bones, and it's a food source.
But actually, the first thing I thought about when you asked about why, and I never thought about why actually, was maybe it's the smell.
Yeah, I mean,
same thing.
The caretaker, whoever it was, it says I suffer from a disease that these animals can smell. I mean, the first thing that came to me was the dogs that can detect cancer. But
that's what he's saying. Yep, I suffer from a disease that dogs can smell. Maybe that's why it left me alone.
Right, and maybe it knows that the meat is tainted or something to that effect. I'm still to this day very, very shocked that nothing else happened of that nature.
I mean, that's an extraordinary sighting. 6 foot tall, sitting down.
It was sitting down. It was about 6 foot tall, and I know the reason why I can do this is I grew up around dogs and dog shows. I've seen any dog you can think of. I've actually seen sitting down, standing up, and what have you. And when you get to the largest dogs there, between the Great Danes and what have you. This was taller than a Great Dane, sitting, wow. and a Saint Bernard and what have you. It had the bulk of a Saint Bernard, but it was tall, and you just saw the glow of the eyes. It wasn't yellow or red; it was just eye shine.
Yeah,
and it was a very unusual experience. This is one cryptid that I definitely don't want to really meet up close and personal ever again.
Yeah.
At all. I don't care. There's some talk on the internet through the armchair theorists out there that these things aren't that aggressive, and there are plenty of people that escape. I got to be honest. I'd rather be trapped in a room with rabid, what do you call chihuahuas? 6 rabid chihuahuas than one rabid pit bull. I'll take my chance. At this point, this is a killing machine. It's just like a great white. It's just like a polar bear.
The other thing you got to think about is that all the people who said that it didn't attack them. There were people who came back, right?
Yeah. Well, just because you didn't get attacked doesn't mean it's not aggressive.
Yeah. It's not aggressive because we've never heard of anybody saying it attacked them. Well, maybe we never heard from those people again.
Yeah, they're missing. That's right.
Yeah, we never heard of them again. But one of the things that I loved about this cryptid versus a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch is the fact that these things literally, it seems like they really know what they're doing, and they love targeting humans. They prey on the fear, and I don't know if there's an energy associated with the fear, kind of like Monster Inc., where they're recharging batteries.
But
they will go.
You got
up to
Sully
your
and
house.
Mike out there.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me, if I saw that in the middle of the night, I'd scream like a baby too. But they'll go to the front and the back door, and they'll jiggle the handle, and they'll tap on the window, and they love peeking into the rooms.
And get that a lot with Bigfoot as well, though. When women living alone, or children in the forest. We get a lot of sightings made by children in the forest, or banging on the walls or the doors of women living alone in the countryside, in rural settings.
Yep.
It happens a lot, and of course, I think it's less intimidating than men. We have to admit that even in our modern world, that's the general setup of things.
Well,
That males are more likely to be carrying weapons or to be hunting and things like that.
when it gets to the ladies, though, I always throw in the fact that even with females in the youngest stage, maybe, I mean, their sense of smell could be huge. These creatures, females do things monthly that can be,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they can be
Yeah.
picking up on it, and they know what a female is, versus a male who has more of like a, like, oh my God, you look like you smell like you've been working in a fish factory for 20 years. There's a big difference here.
Question on that actually. If and I, because we don't have bears here, I don't know this bit of information. If women are in their time of the month and hiking in bear, popular bear areas, are they normally advised against it, or does it have any factor into their presence there at all?
I don't know. I mean, I would think we were so stubborn that we wouldn't listen anyhow,
Yeah.
being the crazy Americans. But that's a good question. I mean, like, I don't think women want to be limited in what they can and can't do, and I don't think they even think of the fact of what's going on. They just think of it as a daily routine. It's like, oh, it's just.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But they don't
Absolutely.
realize that, an animal smelling this and they're smelling what they smell is, like, ooh, lunch.
Yes, well, I mean, it is, it is blood, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
I don't mean to be for the listeners out there. I don't mean to be crude or descriptive. I just
No.
wondered if that's part of the.
I'm getting to the
safety
bottom of
advice
it right
given
now.
to-
Yeah, that's a great. Let's see here. Okay, the National Park Service says that you should take an informed choice if you're going to be camping in bear country during your menstrual period. So, Andy, you were absolutely honest, good as correct.
Oh,
The
Wow.
National Park Service says make an informed choice before going out of the woods on that. How about that?
Good for
Bingo,
the-
bingo.
Good for the Parks Department.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yep.
Well, because of course, I mean, that makes sense to me. Sorry for any the lady listeners out there that was a bit crude for them, but it just as a technical, consideration. I did wonder about that.
Well, and again, I'm with you. We're not trying to be crude here, but this is what we do as researchers. You have to start. Manners have to go out the door in a lot of this, because you have to think of every possibility. And these are very. It's important to understand. This is why I'm trying to tell my children, you need to read, because you need to be well versed in everything.
Right,
Yeah.
and this is also the reason why most of my children won't be seen in public with it too.
Dad.
Yes. To be very, very proud of their dad. When I met them in Kentucky, they seemed very proud to be there. And is your daughter a researcher? One of them is doing some kind of research too, or filmmaking or something. One.
Yeah, she's into photography and everything, and,
Yeah.
and I'm very very proud that you said that. But they will admit to people that I'm their dad if they're not in the same state.
Yeah, I don't know him.
Yeah, I don't know who this guy is.
Security,
No,
take him.
Somebody asked me the other day. They said, "Do you have many discussions about this with people in your local area, with the parents in the school?" And sometimes, my oldest tells people I've gone off to find the Yeti, and I think they just kind of think she's playing around. And I said, "No, I don't talk to the other parents in the schoolyard about it at pickup time." And they said, "Why not?" I said, "Because I want their kids to play with my kids."
That's right. That's right.
Because if I give them that baggage, that's my baggage. They shouldn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, you were very kind to my children, and you actually gave them shirts. Now, I'm so enamored by the merchandise that you have. Say, I'm an ordinary, everyday citizen, and I want to buy Beast of Britain merchandise. McGrath, how can I go about doing that?
Oh, well, I mean, there's several things. So you can get T-shirts on Amazon, Beast of Britain T-shirts on Amazon. There's plenty of links on my Facebook page and on my website, which will be live on Monday or Tuesday, in fact, beastofbritain.com. You can also buy the book. The map has just come out, and there's other types of single merchandise from the map as well. The individual creatures are available in poster form as little phone covers, as mugs, as travel mugs. There's all these different types of things you can get. That's great for me because obviously it's completely self-funded. It is full-time. And it's not, if for anybody out there thinks we're here to make money, Ron and Brian, we can tell them that really, if we were here to make money, that we would have failed at this point.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish we could.
It's not about that. Yes, that would be great. But I think we would straight away just chuck it straight back into research personally. Even if we made a lot of money, it would just go straight into the research part.
Prior to the show, Ron and I were talking about different things, and we were talking about we really need to get a studios because although we do get together, there's a lot of times where we have to be parents first, and I know you know that too.
Yeah, of course.
But it'd be great to, we need a real production crew and stuff. And it's like, we need someone to pick us up. We don't have the money for all this, so a lot of researchers are self-funded, and something so fantastic. And I'm going to hold this up here. This is your bio. This is the bio that we have from you that you provided us as well. I knew about it and I've read it before, but you definitely should go out to pick up a copy. It's a fantastic read.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable.
Yep. Well, I think whenever you talk about what you're going to have on your shelf as a researcher, Coleman's what is it, Cryptozoology A to Z, which is one of those things that you have to have, and then this book, The Beast of Britain. I truly believe those are two must-haves because it provides you with an encyclopedic amount of information, and as any good researcher has to have is that library too. And I will tell you, I am better for having a Beast of Britain on my shelf.
Oh gosh, that's a huge compliment. Now, it's only my debut title. I'm actually. I'm releasing the second edition in February, so there's lots of new chapters, there's lots of new photos, and it will have the Beast of Britain map as the main cover now. It'll be a different cover, because there was a few things I discovered since doing the first one that were perhaps not inaccurate, but needed improving upon, and there were lots more stories I heard too. So there'll be a cheaper version of the book out at sort of mid to late February, which will also have a lot more content in it. And then I think during March at some point I'll take the first edition of the book away from availability. So that's only going to be there for a little while. It's somebody like you, Ron, has written so many books, and I don't have any of them yet. I will have. There's a few on my Amazon list. They're waiting. I do have a backlog of about 10 books I'm supposed to be reading, and I told myself I wouldn't buy until I get a few more books read. But ironically, when you're doing this stuff all the time, somebody was asking me about podcasts earlier. Have you listened to this or that recently? So I don't have time to listen to podcasts anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'm too busy writing stuff and doing them. And they're definitely on my list. I just think for people it's an unusual subject, Britain, because people don't think of it as a country that contains more than Nessie and things like that. And it really does have so much to offer. It's just the first segment. I'm looking at Your Beautiful Nation next, and I'm already putting some chapters down, and it'll go all over the world. And if we manage to sell the TV series, then that will follow each book, and we'll just take it around the globe. And I hope to be privileged to at least show everybody some of those beautiful sights, in my own country and others around the world if we manage to get it together at some point this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I think that you deserve to have, this show as a go. You are one of the most nicest, most humble people I've ever met, and I wish you all the best. The time we spent together, it just completely flew by. But you're intriguing enough that I would like to, watch what you're up to next, and I hope that this all goes well for you, my friend. I really do.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for having me on. I love it as always. I could talk about this forever. I know you guys gotta go, but I could talk forever about this subject, and it's just been awesome. Thank you so much.
Right. Now, what is the website going to be? Is it going to be beastofbritain.com?
That's it, beastsofbritain.com. I've just been working on putting it together. A lovely guy from the Explorers group, Les Sinkovich, has put it together for me. That's going to be live Tuesday. I'm just literally transferring the keys over. So it's done.
Right.
It's just waiting to come up. So 2 days, it should be out.
And
Excellent. And you can get your book on there, the poster,
Everything.
mugs, and all other kind of merchandise. Right.
All
Excellent.
merchandise, all books, every single thing will be there. And you can find out how to book me too. So just very quick, I am doing talks and conferences this year and next year. If you want me to speak, just send me an email, andyromcgrath@gmail.com, or go on the Facebook or the site and contact me there.
And that's very important because you want Andy actually at your events. You want him to speak. He's fantastic when it comes to that as well. But what I wanted to say to you is, and Ron said it. I think you're one of the better and probably one of the best out there doing what you do for curiosity's sake, for historical sake, and it's refreshing to meet people that are such wonderful individuals and human beings and have a great approach to life in general, and are pretty much telling everybody just get out into the woods and put the phones down, put the TVs down, go out with the family.
Yeah.
Explore your own country, your own area, and when you come and when Beasts of North America comes out, you're now part of the Goblin universe. You're welcome here anytime, even if you want 10 minutes. Like, hey, I just want to come on and say X, Y, and Z. Please, anytime we're doing it, we'll do it. You're more than welcome. You have the full keys to the homestead. Make yourself at home.
You.
Bring the family with you too, because our kids like to play as well.
Definitely. I mean, we would love. I do plan to bring them to the US, maybe in 2020, but depending on how the move goes, if that goes ahead or not. But generally speaking, I just think, say to everybody out there, get out into the woods. If you're going to take your phone, make sure you're taking pictures or recording something, and not calling somebody and look at Instagram. And take a buddy with you, whatever you do. Take a buddy with you whenever you get outside, because even the normal can be dangerous from time to time with you all alone in the woods by yourself.
That's definitely the truth. And just tell somebody where you're going at least.
Yes.
So at least they have 100,000 acres to look.
That's right. And it's much easier finding two, just one.
Yes. Definitely easier to find two than one.
That's right, Andy. You can never be in a bad mood whenever you're around. Thank you for your falling inside the Goblin universe with us today.
Thank you very much, fellas. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, we'll see you. Bye-bye. Brian, this was an excellent show, my friend.
I think this is a great way to welcome back, start up the mayhem. Andy's just fantastic. He's wonderful. Part of this, what we're doing here now, and the way we're approaching everything, if I may, Ron, is inside the Goblin universe is this world that we live in. We're going to try to break this up into little segments here and there, and doing other things. We have portals of perception, where we're going to start talking about things where your mind is more involved in it. It's how to better yourself and how to stay positive, and some of the things that play on the psyche, if I'm correct.
That's right.
And then we have and then we have another thing that we want to do. We want to do like these little bits and pieces where Ron and I go out, and if we find something interesting, and we just do a little talk on it. I mean, we literally, like, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 15 minutes, but we call it Sideshow Safari because, frankly, everything we're doing in the paranormal is a sideshow. If this, Barnum he bought a mermaid at one point that mysteriously vanished in a fire that was a mysterious fire in New York City, if I was correct. So, I mean, we're trying to do all these different things here. Ron has a great book if you want to learn more about lake monsters, on lake monsters.
That book is going to be the next one. Oh, here I am now. I'm on camera.
No, that's good. I'll send you a copy. I'll tell you what, I would love to have the new book that you're putting out. So we'll exchange copies, my friend.
Okay, do you have my address? I'll message you my address.
Message me your address, and I'll be able to put that out. But like Brian said, we're trying to really network with all of our listeners. We built a pretty good audience up, a pretty good tried and true audience that's like with us. I really want to get the information out to them, and we learn as much more listeners as we do from our guests. I'm sure it's the same with you. for. So we're looking to share as much with our listeners as much as they
Of course,
share with us.
and vice versa is what vice versa. Sorry, I will share it far and wide when it comes out. Of course, I will. And I appreciate the same thing. Good to see I've been very relaxed with this whole thing. I didn't realize I was turning the camera on then actually, but it seems to have gone now.
You're really good.
But, yeah, I was very relaxed. It was very enjoyable. Me and Ron, we had a great time, Brian, at the at Kentucky. By the time I got to you, I was, I think I was 8 flights in by the time I got to you.
Yep, that's right.
And I had that crazy taxi driver. You remember the one who was going to fight? What's his name? The boxer who fought the cage fighter recently.
The Irish...
Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
Oh, Floyd.
So this taxi driver tells me that he's got 6 kids, 3 of his own, 3 from a relationship his wife had with another man, and then her and the other man, they ran off and left him with all 6 kids. He's my age, like 40-ish. And basically, he was training to be a cage fighter. Then he was going to defeat the Irish guy who got defeated by Mayweather, and then go on to fight Mayweather. And he had a 2-year plan to achieve it all. I was saying, have you ever done cage fighting before? And his reasoning was that he's so angry that nobody he hits could ever get back up again. And this is like an hour and a half journey from the airport, to where we were in Frankfurt, in Kentucky. And in this taxi, I was like, oh my God, this guy's in that case. You're just going to have to go along with whatever he says because it's the only way forward. Don't show any doubt. And, I actually said, look, sort of keep me posted on the page and whatnot. And if you get to fight in England, send me a message. I'll come and watch.
Oh,
it would never happen.
That's
right. Oh my goodness. So getting there and seeing Ron's face and some friendly faces, like, oh, thank God, they're not all crazy.
Oh, it was great. Well, Kentucky, I mean, I really like Kentucky. I'm
nice.
down there probably for. I truly like Kentucky, yeah. And you know what? And I mentioned this to Brian whenever I was down there. I was actually looking for sushi. I was in the mood for sushi.
Oh, wow.
In Kentucky, and Brian said, Ron, whatever you want. By the grace of God, do not eat sushi in Kentucky.
Yeah.
I found a Chinese restaurant sushi I ever had. I kid you not. It was awesome.
It's just, it's Kentucky. Sorry, Kentucky, but, when I'm thinking of Kentucky, I'm thinking bluegrass, lots of sour mash. I'm not thinking sushi, but, hey, everybody has their own risks.
The breakfast platter in the hotel, I couldn't eat anything.
That's
I went in, it was just like grits. Everything, to me, because I'm not used to that sort of layout, everything to me looked like old porridge.
Yes.
I was just like, I can't touch this. And and I just went to the end, and every day there was like a bowl of fruits and cereal, and then I couldn't even find the milk, so I had to have like this whipped cream. I was like, oh, and I couldn't find cappuccino coffee anywhere in the country. I was in Portland, in Vermont. I thought Starbucks would be everywhere. Yeah. Everything was filter. I can't drink filter. I'm like I'm a snob.
You're a press? you like the press?
Like the machine with the cappuccino. I have like a mocha hot with cream and a double shot. That's every morning, and the whole time I was there, everybody's like, will you stop asking about coffee shop? I go in and filter my coffee out with a vanilla, and it'd be like,
Yeah.
But the country,
I
love the country, and I especially love the manners. So something happened to me on not on the first flight. I went into Florida because we were grounded. That was a British Airways flight, but every internal flight up to that, Delta or what's the other one? The big one, I forget. But all the internal
American,
flights.
Yeah,
American. Airlines, yeah. So every time we landed, everybody got up in order and let the person in front of them get their baggage and get off before them. I was like, this place is insane. How come everybody's doing this and then they don't do it? And then people were really shocked that it doesn't happen in the UK. Never.
Yeah.
Nobody's letting you off. And some other countries it's worse, but in the UK for sure, nobody's letting you off. You just get your bag and get to the front as quick as you can as soon as the plane lands. When we go to Israel, they've taken their seatbelts off as we're landing. They're getting the bags out as we're on the runway. Nobody's waiting. Nobody's looking at that sign. Those are guidelines. They're not rules.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
that
let
is
you guys
great.
go. It's great.
Oh no, this was great, my friend. And hopefully next year we'll get together and we're a Pollen place and we're filming an hour worth talking, or maybe we'll go out looking for a dog man or the place.
If you're here and I'm here, I'll definitely find some nice places to take you to, you guys, and you'd be welcome to come along with me. We'll go and have a little adventure together. It'd be wonderful.
I cannot wait,
Oh,
my
definitely.
friend. I cannot wait.
Awesome. Bring your wellies.
I will do that. I will. Hey, all right, guys. I guess that's everything then. We've accomplished a lot of time. So
Yes.
I will say, from inside the universe, I can't believe that I'm saying this. Ron Murphy.
I'm Brian Bowden. And I think that's it.
There you go. There you go. That's it, my friend. We'll see you next time.
Bye
Good night.
bye. Take care.
Be
Bye-bye.
well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.